We've talked a lot about gatekeepers, keeping the content clear versus clever for your title. Your name should solve a problem, but we want to get more into the psychology. How do we get that person to click play? And that's why we got Courtney Elmer. Courtney, take it away. How do we do that? Because I think we all need to know.
I know. How can we get more listens to our show, right? That is the question every podcaster asks. And you mentioned the gatekeepers, and I want to circle back to this because we touched on a couple of them. Your cover art, your show name, but there's a few more. And what I want you to think about is I want you to think about your own user habits. If you're someone who consumes podcasts and you're looking for a new podcast to listen to, what's the first thing you do? Probably either type in a keyword or go to a specific category of interest. And then you start browsing the shows in that category. So there we are with our phone. We're scrolling, right? We're looking. And the first thing that's going to grab our attention is the cover image. The next thing that'll grab our attention is the name. As I mentioned before, if those two things are compelling enough, then maybe we'll click through. And the next thing you're going to read is the description. After that, if that's intriguing enough, you'll probably scroll down and see some of the latest episodes and the topics that they talked about. You'll be looking at the titles. Then you click, you see the show notes, the summary of that episode. And then and only then, if you have made it through all 5 of those content gatekeepers, and if all of them are unconsciously communicating to you along the way that this is an episode that you need to listen to, you'll hit the play button.
Okay, so there's 5 gatekeepers.
5 gatekeepers.
Cover art, the name of the podcast, the description, the titles, and then the show notes or summary, right?
Yes. So most hosts who quit, and the latest statistic is they quit after episode 6, right? That breaks my heart because most of them quit and conclude that people didn't like the sound of their voice, or maybe their message wasn't as valuable as they thought it was, or maybe they're not enough of an expert yet. And they make it mean something about them that it doesn't actually mean. Because 9 times out of 10, I'm willing to bet their content was just fine. The topic they're talking about, a very real topic that people probably have an interest in, not something super obscure. But what they probably didn't do was communicate to their listener why they should care about that topic. Because again, if we're looking at our own user habits, and let's just use Instagram as an example. How many of us scroll Instagram late at night, right? And we're just kind of double tapping stuff. Oh, that's funny. Haha, double tap, right? Scroll past, that doesn't interest me. Scroll past, that doesn't, double tap. And we're moving through content pretty quickly. We're consuming it quickly. But have you ever stopped to think about what actually makes you engage with a piece of content? Was it the image? Was it the title that you saw? Was it the first little snippet of the caption that you read? Was it social proof because 100,000 other people liked this particular video? And so we can apply that to our podcast and say, okay, if these are the 5 content gatekeepers and someone essentially has to enter all through all of these gates before they can get to my content, how can I, at each point in the journey, communicate to my listener why they should care about what I have to say? We first have to sell our listener on what this is going to provide for them, what kind of value this is going to provide before they will engage with our content and click play.
Where do we put that? Like in these gatekeepers, cover art, name, description, title, and show notes. Where do we find the best time to communicate with the listener? Why should they care to listen?
You can do it through your words, and you can do it through the message behind your words. So here's what I mean by that. Just like the example I gave you with the cover art and the name earlier, with move forward anyway, and switching that to stop doubting your dream, which makes that clearer and more focused on the problem. That is actually an unconscious piece of communication because nowhere did you say, hey, this is a great podcast about achieving your dream and I can really help you do this. And we're going to solve the problem of self-doubt other than in those 4 words in your title. But it's enough to, on an unconscious level, make your listener stop the scroll because it is a real problem that they're dealing with. That's one example. Let's look at cover art. If you look at Amy Porterfield's podcast, and if I were to pull her up on my computer right now and take a screenshot of all the other art that's next to hers is the only one that is completely opposite of the other shows that are appearing next to her, top 10 or so shows surrounding her. Most of the shows there have warm colors, really bold graphics, really strong text, right? Some of them have photos, some of them don't, but it's these bold fonts. It kind of comes across strong as these warm colors, which, color theory says they're supposed to incite people to action. But Amy did the opposite. Now, Amy's show is called Online Marketing Made Easy. Her title's very clear, and it solves a problem for her listener. more positive frames, but it's actually solving a problem because she's attracting people who are struggling with their online marketing. Her cover art is very light gray. It's clean. The shirt that she's wearing is like a light blue color, and it's completely opposite everything else that you see next to her. I'd be willing to bet that's intentional, because if you're scrolling and everything looks the same, where's your eye going to be drawn to? To the one thing that looks different. So those are two examples of how we can unconsciously grab someone's attention, right? They're not sitting there going, let me look at a show that has different cover art, right? This isn't a logical thing that they're sitting there, examining, how I'm going to listen, but it will draw their eye. Then they'll read the title that will address a problem. Then they read your description. And if that is framed towards further validating why you're the person to help them solve those problems, then that will help to build some of that trust.